The sound of my cell phone vibrating on the nightstand woke me up from my drunken slumber. I sat up in the bed and immediately became aware of the throbbing pain in my skull. My stomach began to turn, and I cradled my head in my arms in hopes that it would stop the room from spinning. I never knew it would be possible to be drunk and hungover at the same time, but as I sat there trying to prevent myself from hurling and massaging my temples, my body couldn't have felt more trashed. The evening has been a blur. I was just coming home from the football game with my girlfriend Ruth. We were making out in the bleachers and sipping cheap vodka out of water bottles. After that, everything went blank. I could remember flashes, just random images, but nothing more. Concentrating on the previous night's events wasn't doing my headache any favors, and I decided some aspirin might help to alleviate my agony. My cell phone went off again. I could feel the vibrations carried throughout the nightstand all the way down to the bedroom floor. The noise sliced through the silence in my room and pierced my eardrums, startling me out of my stupor. I snatched the cell phone off the side of the table and stumbled to my bedroom door. It was only that I realized how dark it was. I glanced up at the Felix the Cat clock that hung on the wall and noticed it was only 3 in the morning. No wonder I felt wasted. I must have only had a little more than a couple hours of sleep. As I wobbled down the stairs, on my way to the kitchen, where my family kept the aspirin, more images flashed through my mind. There was a house party after the game. My friend Davy was there. He gave Ruth and I a ride home. I remember sneaking in my house through the back window, raiding the fridge, and passing out in bed and with my shoes on, which was odd because I had woken up barefoot in my pajamas. I fumbled through the darkness and into the kitchen. I didn't want to turn any lights on in fear that waking my mom and being seen in my current state. I was still my mom's little angel, and her catching me intoxicated was the last thing I wanted her was the last thing that was going to cure my headache. I dropped my phone in surprise and it clattered across the hardwood floor. I cursed under my breath and flung myself onto the ground to pick it up. More memories flashed through my mind. Lying in bed and seeing my mother's face looking down on me, she changed me into my PJs and kissed me goodnight on my forehead. Even though she tended to cuddle me, it was still out of character for her to do something like that. She never came into my room unannounced, and she hadn't kissed me since I was 11. I placed my hands on the hardwood floor in order to push myself to my feet, but paused when I felt something wet and sticky on the ground. My immediate thoughts was that I spilled something earlier while rummaging through the fridge, but when I looked at my hand, I knew that wasn't the case. Even in the darkness, I could see the crimson color of the mystery liquid. The coppery slippery made me almost nauseous. My nauseous stomach began to do somersaults. It was blood. I was sure of it. The pounding in my head took a back seat in the cradle trails leading from the oven and went into the living room. I followed the blood path out to find what would be the end of it. The TV was on in the living room. An infomercial for an expensive vacuum cleaner was playing on the screen. I hadn't heard the television because the volume had been placed on mute. At the end of the trail, a pool of her vital fluids, and my mother laying lifeless on the couch. She was completely nude except for her house slippers, as if someone had removed her nightie. Her skin was pale, mostly due to the loss of blood in her, and she was still trickling out of the rug. Considering how nauseous I had been feeling, I was amazed I didn't vomit when I took a close look at her. A careful incision was made along the hairline of her scalp and ran down her face, in front of her ears, around her chin, and back up the other side. I was staring at nothing but her cartilage and muscle tissue from the skin of her face once covered. The vibrations of my phone sent a jolt up my arm. I looked at the screen and noticed I had 5 new text messages that said, "Hey, I made it home okay. See you tomorrow. Ruth, 2:55 a.m. Are you awake? Ruth, 2:57 a.m. I'm feeling really creeped out. If you're awake, please answer. Ruth, 3:04 a.m. I think your mom's standing outside my window. I'm really scared right now. Mom, 3:09 a.m. I'm at Ruth's, honey. Why don't you come over and join us when you get the message?